Hi, George Fasching here, helping you unlock your team's genius. In this video, I'm going to share some thoughts and encouragements on what to say when you talk to yourself as a leader. So I'm very specifically talking about self-talk and the inner dialogue, the narrative that goes through your mind, all the little stories that you tell yourself, that we all tell ourselves. And as a leader, it is especially important to be very mindful of what goes on in our mind, because we can only be as effective as our mind allows us to be. However, we can train our brain, we can train our mind for more positive mental well-being, for more positive thinking that goes on in our mind. So when some of these thoughts come up, they are usually not very kind, right? So I've mentioned in a previous video already that when we observe our inner dialogue and imagine that we actually saw some people talk to each other like that, we might be quite concerned for their safety. So how come we're talking to ourselves in this way? It's not very helpful, is it? So there is an exorbitant amount mental processing capacity that is actually being wasted through all this negative self-talk that might happen for you, and these are not very empowering stories either, right? So the first question that I usually like to ask in executive coaching engagements when something like this comes up, and it tends to come up because we all have self-talk, we all have limiting beliefs that are preventing us from being the best that we possibly can be. So when this comes up, it's usually an inquiry into, well, where is this voice coming from, and when is this voice coming from, right? It can often be that this is actually a voice that has been with us for quite some time. It is one that could have been developed in our childhood through the role models and the situations that we have encountered when we were quite young, and developed when we were quite young. So the question then is, well, how is that serving us now? And usually the logical answer is, well, it's not really serving us right now, right? However, it's not all bad. So sometimes we can actually channel this and say, well, if we always listen to this inner voice, what would our leadership look like? If we never listen to this voice, what would our leadership look like? And then usually the determination is, well, the truth would be somewhere in between those two extremes. So how do you go about this then? Firstly, with some patience and determination, right? These are some mental patterns, some neurological pathways that have been forged over the last years and decades, and it will take a bit of time and perseverance on your part in order to help with that. But in order to motivate you through that journey, bear in mind how more impactful your leadership could even be if you didn't have all this self-talk going on that is currently inhibiting or limiting you in your impact for the people that you get to serve as a leader, for the organization, and for the customers of the organization, and yourself as a leader. So a few strategies for you to try out. One is to simply, when you notice a limiting or negative self-talk starting to chatter in the back of your mind, to simply tell it to stop and say, hey, thanks for your thoughts. I'm not listening to it right now because I have grown, and I'm just gonna go forth anyway. Another one is to actually have a more deeper dialogue and actually sit down and think through what limiting and negative self-talk has come up, and then bring that voice in your mind to the forefront again, and have a dialogue and actually talk it through and argue, if you will, but or debate in a very positive manner, in an empowering manner, and share everything that you have learned over the last years, but do that repeatedly, right? Because so you can actually change those mental pathways. What is somewhat natural for people to try to do is to ignore or compartmentalize that voice, and try to kind of push through and push past it. So that obviously is a short-term fix. It's a patch. It has some effect, but the issue is that that is like a virus that just keeps growing still, and it's still there, and it still takes mental capacity, it still takes energy away from your real leadership work that is going on. So simply ignoring it is actually not helping it go away permanently, and it will still be there. So some involvement with it is very good over time, and wonderfully you can do this anytime, right? Because this is all inner dialogue, but the the power that you can nurture is to take control of the dialogue rather than letting the dialogue control you. So all of these little stories that are coming up in your mind when you are faced with things that are making you somewhat uncomfortable, but you know are the right thing to do, that's when those little stories come up, and the inner dialogue that then looks for all sorts of excuses why it couldn't work and why you shouldn't do it, right? So this is when you can take control, and this is when you can remind yourself of all the experience and all the competence that you have developed over the last years and decades, and respond and counter. And actually then in a determined way, go forth with what you have decided to do, because it's the best thing for the people you get to serve, the best thing for the organization, the best thing for the customer, and the best thing for yourself as a leader, right? So these are some high-level thoughts and suggestions and strategies inspired by quite a few of my executive coaching engagements. Hopefully they are of value to you, so you are better equipped what to do and what to say when you talk to yourself. And with that, I would like to close this video. Thank you very much for your time and energy. If you have any thoughts on this, please share them in the comments. I really hope this was of value to you. If so, please like, share, and subscribe to this video. And all the best for your organization, and all the best for your practice at work and your path as a leader. Thank you and goodbye.